real quick the progress that we have made. Good morning, you guys. Welcome back to my channel. I just made myself a cup of coffee, although my milk and espresso ratio has been a little off lately. I need to add a little bit less milk to get this darker. But I have some sourdough cinnamon rolls in the oven. This is my first time making cinnamon rolls ever, let alone sourdough cinnamon rolls. I'm hoping they come out okay. I'm hoping they cook all the way through. This recipe called for 12 exactly, and I made about 11, so I might have made them just a tad bit thicker. I'm making these for Steven because today is his birthday. It's a Wednesday though, so he is at work all day, but I wanted to have this ready for him when he comes home. I also have a sourdough loaf that I'm making immediately after these are done. I was looking up some scoring tips on Pinterest last night on just a better way to score my loaves, because what I didn't know about scoring is that yes, people do it for the aesthetics. It also helps release any air coming from the bread. I don't think I'm explaining that right, but it keeps the bread essentially from cracking. So I'm sure there's a better way to explain it. But I was looking up tips, and one of the tips that I read about last night, something that I hadn't heard before, was dipping your razor blade, your scoring tool, into hot water to give it a smoother cut. So I'm gonna do that today, see how that goes. I was looking up designs last night, and that's just honestly just what makes it so fun, is being able to like experiment with that process. Another thing, something that I'll talk about a little more later today, is my sourdough starter is just absolutely like blooming. It is beautiful. It takes no effort on my part anymore as far as like getting it to rise. I remember when I first started making the sourdough starter from scratch, it took forever. It felt like forever. It took me 4 separate attempts. I mentioned that in a previous vlog, but I'll talk about more about that later as far as like helpful tips for you guys on getting your sourdough starter active and lively and bubbly. Yeah, because I have many things that I learned, and I learned from many of my mistakes. While the oven's preheating, we're gonna go for a wagon ride, and then the cinnamon rolls look like they turned out really good. The cream cheese, the frosting or whatever, it's a bit bubbly. I let it boil, which I wasn't supposed to, but it's fine. It's gonna taste good. Letting it cool a little bit, but we're gonna go do that, get some outside time because these kids are feral this morning. Okay. I have iced coffee. I don't know how I'm gonna do this. can't hear the music outside for any copyright purposes, but they're playing with their little electric car. Yeah, kids are outside playing. We just came back from a walk. It is a beautiful, beautiful day today. I actually got hot while we were on our walk. I'm about to start scoring my sourdough. Cinnamon rolls look amazing. I'll be honest. I feel like we've had a lot of sweets the last couple of weeks with like birthdays and celebrations, and me just like wanting to experiment in the kitchen. I think after today I'm gonna take a little break and detox a little bit from the sweets because it's been a lot. Are you ready to play this one? We are doing quiet time right now. For whatever reason, JoJo was like super tired this morning, so I actually put her down for an early nap. It's also now raining, and I did not bring the kinetic sand back inside, so that might be trash. We forgot it outside. It said it wasn't gonna rain anymore, and then all of a sudden, it's raining again. So anyways, we're doing quiet time. I set like a timer so that I could quickly clean up the house. Just finish the dishes, finish making my bed, making sure laundry's caught up because I was not caught up with laundry for what felt like a week, probably a week. Update on those sourdough cinnamon rolls. Probably the best cinnamon rolls, the best homemade cinnamon rolls I have ever had. I give credit to the sourdough because wow, they are so moist. Update on homeschool. So we actually finished the preschool course workbook from The Good and the Beautiful. We finished it about maybe like a week ago. When we first started homeschool, we were doing it every day. And then we started doing it every like 3 days a week because we were going through it so incredibly fast. And had we done it every single day, we probably would have finished within like a 4-month, probably 5-month span. So I tried pushing it out as long as I could, but it actually worked out because I have their kindergarten prep course workbook coming in the mail. It should be coming any day now. I'm excited to start that with him. That is also from The Good and the Beautiful. I also got a couple of things from Treehouse Schoolhouse. I got their Wonder of Nature number bundle and their traceable monthly calendar. I won't go into too much detail here because I might do a whole separate video on this, but this is the number bundle, and my son's, he knows his numbers. This is fun because we are able to shape the numbers. I'll give you guys like a little overview. Love the format, the layout of this. So the number bundle includes 1 through 10. This kindergarten prep course workbook should get us through until probably September. So it'll get us through the summer. These are all things I'm still learning, you guys, as a brand new homeschooling mom. It's kind of just like how to do this thing. There's not one way to do it. What works best for our family. Again, I'm going to make a whole separate video on like what worked, what didn't work. I know a lot of homeschooling parents do like year-round schooling, and that's, I feel like that's kind of what we're doing right now because I'm not so adamant about like making this super formal. If you guys are year-round homeschoolers, maybe some advice in the comments. If you're homeschooling moms in general, if you've been doing this for several years, please, I need some advice in the comments as far as like how you go about it, what works, what doesn't work for you guys. I know every child is different, but I just would like to hear other people's experiences throughout this journey. And again, I will be sharing my own in a future video, which I think you guys will enjoy. I know a lot of you guys have been asking me on Instagram to update you guys on homeschool and how that's going. So yeah, that is the little update on that. Good morning. It is several days later. We have had full days. This weekend was full of things to do. We had a family day, but then straight back to work, straight back to working in the backyard. In my previous video, I showed you guys that we were tearing up the grass because we were going to be laying down some garden beds there in the future. Not this next weekend, but the following weekend, we plan on going in person, looking at some rock. We've been looking at rock online, like gravel and stuff, but it's really hard to get like a good sense of what it's gonna look like unless we go in person. I feel like pictures just don't translate as well. It's crazy to think that we literally spent like probably an hour and a half last night looking at like different types of rock, colored rock, like the size of the rocks, and just like how important that is. I mean, it's not important, but like aesthetically, that's a big part of it. And yeah, and then having the majority of that finished so that we can finally have our little garden area, and I'm really excited about it. It's been a lot of work. It's been hard doing it because we got both the kids here as we're doing it. But they've been pretty good, just kind of like playing outside when I do need to help him. On our family day, I bought a new sweater, bought a new jacket at Bass Pro, and it took me until today to even notice that they left the sensor on, and I just noticed that. And two of the shirts that he bought too big. So today I have to go dumpster diving before the trash goes out tonight, because the receipt is in the trash. So that's on the agenda today. Not excited about that. I'm also in the process of making some sourdough discard sandwich bread. Stephen really liked it, so he wanted me to make it again. It's actually a pretty simple recipe to make, pretty easy to make. Makes 2 loaves. The shaping of the loaves are a little funny, but that's because one of my pans is a little bigger than the other. Okay, I finally have a second to sit and chat with you guys. Josie's down for a nap. Lucas is doing quiet time. He tends to come out every like 20 minutes during quiet time and ask me if it's over. My goal is an hour in there for him to do quiet time in his room. Coloring, playing with his toys. If he wants to nap, he can, but I don't keep him in there longer than an hour, especially if he doesn't fall asleep. It's very rare if he falls asleep, but he's doing that now. I have a second to chat with you guys. I don't even know why I tried filming yesterday. It was just such a busy day, like unintentionally busy, just like motherhood and homemaking, like all the things, all the mundane chores that I have to do. I did end up taking the kids to the park. That was a lot of fun. They got to play, they got to make new friends, but it was just very like go, go, go. So I just did not have a second to like pick up the camera really and talk. And I made the mistake of once again trying to make that sourdough discard bread in the morning. That's something that I need to do like midday. Like right now would have been like a perfect time to start that bread. It is a little more hands-on, but it came out great. I love that recipe. That was my second time making it. It comes out really good and it makes 2 loaves. So I'll link that down for you guys. It is such great bread. I actually have my sourdough starter in the fridge right now because I don't plan on making anything today or tomorrow. I want to make bagels next, but I gotta prepare. I gotta prepare for that. But since we're on the topic of sourdough starter, all that stuff, I know I've been talking about it like so much lately, because it's kind of just like taken over my brain, and it's been so much fun. It's been so much fun. I see people on the internet all the time like saying it's overrated, not worth it, all these things, but I haven't had like any problems with it other than getting the starter active in the beginning. So here's where I went wrong. I tried this last starter that I made. That was my 4th attempt because I failed 3 times prior to that. I tried the first time in the summer of last year, and I really just didn't know enough I didn't know, I didn't do enough research. Not that you have to do a whole ton of research, but I didn't do enough research. And then I got scared when it was active. That happened with my friend, actually. She watches my videos, so she knows exactly what I'm talking about. She got nervous just like I did. As soon as the starter gets bubbly, you're like, oh my gosh, I have to start prepping bed. I don't know what to do. I found the perfect ratio. This is what I do, depending on how much I want. Because as an example, that recipe I made required just a little bit under 300 grams, just a little bit under 300 grams of starter, active bubbly starter, or no, discard. That is a lot. And I almost freaked out because the first time I made it, it almost took all of my sourdough starter. Turns out if you just have even a little bit of starter and you feed it, it's insane. It's just like a new batch has just been created. It required a lot of my sourdough starter. So I'm thinking to myself, okay, with whatever I plan on making, I need to figure out how much I should be feeding it. So really the secret is to just add 1/6 of a cup less of water to however much flour you are adding. So if you're adding 1/3 of a cup of flour, you would add 1/4 of a cup of water. If you're adding a 2/3 cup of flour, you would just add 1/2 a cup of water. So it's just that 1/6 of a cup less of water. That's the ratio. I've never gone over a 3/4 cup, but just adding 1/6 of a cup less than that. That has been my perfect ratio. When I used to do the 1-to-1, a cup of flour, a cup of water, I would get that hooch right at the top and it would not rise nearly as quickly. Now when I feed it, it rises pretty instantly. At that 4th hour when you are able to start baking with it, it has already doubled in size and it stays that way, honestly, almost up until the 12th hour. So that has been my perfect ratio. I hope that helps. I hope that I explained that well enough. If I didn't, we can chat about it in the comments. I use filtered water from my fridge and I prefer to keep it in a mason jar so that it stays at room temp. Although you don't have to worry about that. I have used it straight from the fridge and it's totally fine. Another thing I do when getting my starter active, at least in the beginning, if you are trying to create a sourdough starter from scratch, something that really helped was, and this is something that my friend actually suggested, was to not leave it on a cold counter. I began this journey in the winter and my counters are very, very cold. And so what she suggested is that I use just a towel or whatever to put underneath it or put it somewhere where it's not very cold and it should be just fine, just like that. So now I don't even have to worry about keeping it truly warm. I don't keep it anywhere very cold, but temperature does play a part. So this is my sourdough starter. I have it in this mason jar. For me, it was important to have a mason jar that had a wide enough lid. There are some mason jars that have a really small lid and it just makes it hard to add in your flour and stir and it gets really messy. So I wanted something that had a wide enough lid. I might end up transferring this to something even bigger. I just use a cheesecloth that I already had in my kitchen. You can order these off of Amazon. I use this cheesecloth and I just drape it over. You don't want a lid that will suction and close this really tight. So this is just how I keep my starter. I'm still learning, as you guys can probably tell, but this has been what has worked for me. And I just use another little rubber band to mark where my starter's at, and yeah. I'm gonna show you guys real quick the progress that we have made with our little garden area. So this is what we accomplished over the weekend. We got this tarp down, we got the ground leveled. We will be adding mulch around the trees, so we're gonna just do a circle around them because the rocks will not be good for them. But it's all a work in progress. And then on this side, I don't know the last time I showed you guys this side of our backyard, but if you guys remember from when we moved in, this is where we had like cinder block garden beds that were just not the vibe, and just in a really awkward area. But something that we have been wanting to do is have this be our chicken coop slash chicken run, because as you guys can see, it's all shaded over there, and so they could have that whole area to run. We would have no more than 5 chickens. This probably won't be happening until like May. We wanted to get the chickens sooner, but we are going to Hawaii. It's hard enough already to find someone to watch Arlo and Kitty, and so we're like, okay, chickens, we're probably gonna have to wait, especially because we're trying to get them when they're just a few weeks old. I think maybe like a week or 2 old, and so they're gonna be living inside for maybe like a month or 2. Because of the time of the year, they might be in the house a little less, so transitioning them outside won't be as difficult. But in a few months, you will see a nice garden chicken coop, which we're trying to figure out if we want to buy. Okay, hold on, the dogs are having a day over here. Okay, anyways, like I was saying, that area is just perfect for the chickens to have that area for a run. We don't have to worry about letting them out. I mean, I do plan on letting them out. I've been doing a ton of research on that and trying not to get scared. Almost everyone that we have watched on YouTube when doing research has said that having chickens is definitely worth it. And because we are in a suburban area, we can only have max 5, like I said. I think we're gonna start off with 3. This has always been the vision. It has just taken so much time, so many excuses, and I'm just ready to start like taking action and pursuing all the things that we have been wanting. I mean, we have so much space back here and we just have not been utilizing it. And it makes me really sad because it's like, that is something that we prayed for, is more room, more space, more land. We're not on acreage or anything, but we've got a pretty decent sized backyard that we own, that we can within reason do a lot of things. So yeah, that is going to be the plan in the next couple of months. Like I said, we're not getting the chickens until we come back from our trip. That's the goal, but all really exciting things. I'm going to end this video with a little Q&A. I have some questions from Instagram that I'm going to be addressing today. Someone asked, and I've gotten this question quite a bit, but thoughts on living in California as a young family. So I'm going to be a little biased only because I'm a California native. Like, I've lived here my whole life, and so it's coming from someone who this pretty much has been all I've ever known, aside from obviously the time that we spent abroad while my husband was in the military. Thoughts on living in California as a young family. Not relevant to you guys, but I have family here. We have family here. My husband and I are both from California. So that plays a big role on like our lifestyle, how much we enjoy it. We have help. The weather, as much as I did enjoy living somewhere where there was all 4 seasons, I will not take for granted the amount of sunshine and warm weather that we get here in California. Sometimes when I see other friends who they have really harsh winters, I think, oh, sometimes it's cozy, and other times I think, oh, how much I would dread being stuck inside all day long. I would get used to it if we did move somewhere that had all 4 seasons, but I do very much enjoy the sun, the warm weather. Spring is near, and I've been seeing people still posting about how it's like winter storms where they're living, and I've just been, I mean, I can't complain with the weather. It's been beautiful the last couple of weeks, and I've been really enjoying it. But as far as how expensive it is to live in California, it is, I mean, it's something my husband and I talk about all the time. Are the house prices worth it? And I mean, if we didn't already have roots here, the answer would be no. It's not worth it. And my husband actually has to commute to work. It's not a bad commute, but we've had to drift farther and farther away from the Bay Area because that's where we're from. It's very expensive and it's just not affordable. It's not affordable living. It's really hard. And when we think about moving, or even if it's within California, it's just really hard to try to justify the house prices. The interest rate right now just makes it absolutely impossible. We bought at a time that was literally just a God-given blessing. It was a blessing. It was a blessing when we bought this house. The timing and everything, it was such a God thing. Had it been any other time, we wouldn't have, had we bought now, this house now, we wouldn't have been able to afford it. I mean, maybe, but we would have been paying so much money on our mortgage, like double our mortgage right now. And so I don't know where this question is coming from. If it's coming from someone who lives outside of California that wants to move to California, I would say don't do it. Don't do it unless you have family over here. That's the only reason that we are here, and it will not keep us here forever. We talk about leaving every so often, and if that opportunity arises and we're like, okay, like let's do it, then I mean, that's the hard part, is we won't have that support, at least in the beginning, which makes it really difficult. I know there's a lot of stereotypes about Californians and how they're very rude, and that might be true depending on where you are, but I've come across very good people, and I think you'll find rude people anywhere you go. But yeah, it's just overall the lifestyle. It's really expensive. Like geographically, it's beautiful. I think for a young family, there's a lot to do over here, but is the cost of living going to keep you from being able to enjoy those things? Kind of brings me into the topic of this next person's question, which is, what are some things you sacrifice or adjust to be able to stay home with your babies? So a couple of the things I have been doing since I've gotten married, because when my husband first joined the military, he was not making a lot of money and I was not working and we were overseas. A couple things that I gave up were getting my nails done, getting my hair done, doing any like services like that. I just don't do frequently. But I don't know if I'd call those things a sacrifice anymore, because I almost feel like giving up all those things gave me more freedom. Like I wasn't bound to like having to get my eyelashes done, my hair done, feeling like if I didn't have those things done that I would be unhappy or unsatisfied. Even without all the beauty services, we do majority eat at home. When we do eat out, it adds up so much. So that's part of the reason too as to why I've been trying to expand my skills in the kitchen, learn how to bake bread, learn how to make new things, because I had just this, like, not a breakdown, but I came home from the grocery store, I think maybe a week ago, and I'm just like, I feel like I bought nothing. Like, what? It's like $200 later. I am trying to be smart about the things that I bring home, like the things that I purchase, and I have to run to the grocery store again because I feel like I bought nothing. And so that's something that I guess you would say I'd have to adjust, is what I'm purchasing from the grocery store, where I'm purchasing from, learning to make things from scratch so that we aren't spending a ton of money on things that I could be making at home. That's fairly new. I haven't been doing that forever. Another thing I'd say that we do sacrifice more of is the travel aspect. We would be traveling a lot more, whether that was visiting friends, going on vacations, if we weren't just on a single income. And so like our trip to Hawaii, like I mentioned, I think our last trip that we took was when Josie was almost 3 months old, and we went to Arizona. She will be almost 2 years old, and this will be our very next trip. So the sacrifice of not being able to travel as often, being on a single income. But yeah, so like no beauty services with the exception of one, not eating out as often, cooking more from scratch, and less opportunities to travel. How often do you solo parent when your hubby is working? So I solo parent at least one weekend a month. Last year I solo parented a lot because my husband had a lot of work trips through the reserves. He was doing some trainings out of state. And so I want to say the month of November, December, he was gone a lot. He was gone like half of each of those months. This year, it's going to be different. This year, he's trying to be gone less. So it'll just be one weekend a month. And I'm looking forward to that because it was a lot of solo parenting last year. How do you handle anxious thoughts and fears, especially as a mom, if you have any? This one's kind of hard to answer, if I'm being honest, because there have been many times where, I think this is something that a lot of us struggle with, right? Anxious thoughts and fears as a mother. And for me, a lot of it came from, I think, social media. Just having so much exposure to the world and things that happen to children. These are things that have been done since the beginning of time. And unfortunately now with the level of exposure that social media brings, we as mothers, it's like we are carrying the weight of the world when that was never the intention. Jesus did not die for our sins, for only us to carry the weight of the world. And so that's kind of the reason I pulled back a little bit from sharing them so much online, like being a little more cautious as far as like what I share, sharing their little facial features, just being a little more reserved. I thought to myself, this is my way of protecting my children in only the way that I can. And that's a really hard truth to think about, that you can only protect them as much as you can, and then you got to give it to God. And so I had to sort of reflect on like why I was having anxious thoughts, where were they coming from, what was in my control and what wasn't in my control. And through prayer, repetition of prayer, that God exposed to me, like, these are the areas that will help. These are the areas that you can focus on, but you need to give the rest to me. And part of that was social media, backing away a little bit. You'll see little bits of them here and there, but nothing that I'm uncomfortable with sharing. I will not share something that I am uncomfortable with sharing. But yeah, I used to have like people in my life send me these, really disturbing articles on Instagram or whatever. And, this happened to this kid and this happened to that kid. And it's like, I didn't feel like I needed to read that sort of stuff, that sort of thing, in order to protect my children more, because I know the world is evil. I know there are evil people there, and I'm very cautious with my children when I leave the house, when we're at parks, when I have my guard up. So I hope that answer helped you and eased your mind a little bit. Any advice for those who are in a relationship with a believer, but your faith is stronger? I can't get into this entirely in this one question. This is not really something I've ever really talked about, but when my husband and I first met, I fell away from the church. He never had a relationship with God, at least from what he expressed. He didn't have a relationship with God. He had never been baptized. He didn't seek or know the Lord. And so it took me some time to seek God again. And I finally did when we had moved to Germany. And I remember, even when my husband didn't have faith, didn't have belief, that Christmas he gifted me my first Bible. So I'm going to be flat out honest. It scared him when I told him that I was seeking the Lord. And the reason it scared him was because there are so many Christians that claim to follow the Lord, and they do not glorify him. Through their actions, they push people away from knowing God. And so when my faith began to grow, it was like, well, why aren't you doing this? Why aren't you doing that? And the pointing of the fingers is just not going to be helpful and does not glorify God. And when my husband finally decided that he wanted to seek the Lord, I knew God was working within him. And so because I had been on this journey a few years ahead of him, I just assumed that my faith was stronger. And that assumption really pushed him away because I would be really judgmental. I'd say things that I probably shouldn't have been saying. And I wasn't glorifying God. And so his faith, my faith, our faith is growing gradually, but the Lord is working within us. And so I think my advice would be, don't assume that your faith is stronger. And if it is, do what's going to bring glory to God. Make sure your actions bring glory to God, because if it's nagging, that's not bringing glory to God. If it's acting holier than thou, that's not bringing glory to God. And so that's some things that I've had to reflect on myself. And yeah, that's the best way that I can answer that question. Sorry if that was like a long, dragged out explanation. There's still so much to that story that I hope one day I can share. So anyways, yeah, that's gonna conclude today's video. It's gonna conclude a little Q&A. Thank you guys so much if you're still here watching this video. I really appreciate it. If you guys enjoyed it, make sure to give it a thumbs up. Thank you guys so much for watching today's video, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye guys.